you need to identify who you want to serve. And notice how I did say that. It's not who I want to sell from to, not who I want to take money from. It's who I want to serve. The thing about business and e-commerce in general, it's really all about value transfer. You get paid money when you transfer value to them. So
100%.
how do you transfer value? It's not by trying to swindle. It's not by trying to take from. It's by trying to give, give, give. And so who can you serve and who do you want to serve? So, we could just kind of do this as an example, kind of make it mock brain while we do this. But let's say who I want to serve is I specifically want to create, this is an easy one, but I specifically want to create sleeping cannabis products, sleeping focused cannabis products for women that are between the ages of 35 and 50 who live in metropolitan cities. So that's I'm getting specific, and I'm pulling this out of the air, but just to kind of prove this point. Okay, so I'm identifying that audience, right? So the first thing, so what I do is I start like with a basis like that. Then I like to implement this thing called Muse methodology. And essentially this is really close to personas. So typically people suggest create personas, identify 3 to 5 people of your demographic and what they're into, what they like, what they don't like. I like to start with one. I say, okay, I'm gonna create one muse. And so I create that muse and I give that muse a name. So in this case, let's call that muse Katrina. Right? Katrina is a 37-year-old female who currently lives in New York City. And it is just between the stress of COVID, the anxiety of losing her job, and the loud sirens going through the streets, and she lives on the first floor in New York, and things are just getting a little wild. She's just not sleeping. She's stressed out. She's anxious. Okay, she's also really hip and fashionable, and she works for a financial institution. So
until she lost her job.
Right, in case she loses her job, she's worried about losing her job. She's anxious and she's not sleeping
because
she might lose her job. But now this is kind of funny, right, guys? Like, what are you guys talking about? But we've just crafted this whole person, this whole you can see her, right? Like exactly. I can see her. She's
and then you ask, like, where does she shop? What websites does she go on? Like, what magazines does she read? Things like that. Get inside of her head, right?
You tell that story more, and I haven't done this yet, but I swear I'm going to do it. Hold me to it. I'm going to buy a mannequin and dress this person up. And this is Katrina. And this is kind of a silly thing, but I'll tell you, it works. And the way it works is you start identifying these things like, hey, Matt, what does Katrina read? Well, she's really into the New York Times. She likes the New Yorker, and she's a little bit of a BuzzFeed girl. And she's just into it. that's just their vibe. And what it does is you start to create this persona. You document this persona and you make it part of your culture within your startup to reference this persona. So when you're starting to ask your questions like, well, should the packaging be blue or should it be white? Well, what would Katrina like? What should we be targeting Instagram or Facebook when it comes to advertising more? Or should we be doing Snapchat, or we should be looking at doing some Google AdWords? Well, where is Katrina? What is she doing? By doing this, you start to have a really deeper understanding of who your customer is and are able to serve them much, 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 much better.
For sure, 100%.
So I start with one. You can expand to 3 or 5. That's what people typically do as personas. But I find this Muse methodology of starting with one is really important. Look for an audience that's currently being underserved. And that is a hole in the market. So let's go to point number 2 now. So once you've identified who you want to serve, your audience, you need to identify what it is they need or want that you can provide them that others can't. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Identify what it is that they need or want. So here we go with Katrina. Katrina, what does she need or what does she want, and what can I provide them as the brand builder that others cannot? And so this is the part where you should take some time to do the research. Take the time to do the research, discover exactly what it is that they are wanting and how you wanted to serve it to them. So we've talked about Katrina's sleep problem. So like, okay, but the questions I start to ask myself is like, are they a person that would be interested in like a patch, a tea, a tincture, What these are kind of like what do they want? Do they want something that they can use at night? Do they want something that they can do? Want a new routine? What does that look like? And I look at what other products currently exist that are serving her or her friends, and what are they doing right and what are they doing wrong? How do you figure out what they're doing right and wrong? Well, you look at the reviews. This is like a really simple hack that I think people really miss out on is when they identify their customer and they're like, okay, what it is that they want? Well, first look at whatever they're buying right now. What are they trying to solve their problem with currently, and what's working and what's not working for that? The best way to do that is read the reviews. Read the best reviews, find out what they love about those products, and find out what they hate about those products. Look at the worst reviews. And when you do that, you start to identify exactly what it is that you can do in order to serve that person better, which is rule number one, right? Like the real goal here is serving that person.
Yeah, you might find like a similar product and they're commenting like, oh, I wish it had this ingredient in it or something like that. And you're like, oh, I keep seeing people saying, I wish it was made like this or whatever. And you just got to go off those cues and those tips. And I know Sean Kemp does that too. When he writes his copy, he goes to Amazon. And I think he said he only looks at the 1 star and the 5 stars. And the 5 stars, like only the best and the worst. Like he doesn't.
It's the way to do it, man. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And okay, so let's say you did that, right? So now you're at the point, like we have Katrina. We want to serve Katrina because she's going to sleep better. She's anxious. She's stressed. Might lose her job, COVID, New York City, like lots of sounds. And so she needs to sleep. We identify that, other people like Katrina are using ZZZ sleep, but it's really making them groggy in the morning, or they're using melatonin, but it's becoming dependent for them. Or they just started trying CBD tincture, but it's really not doing that much. If it's helping them relax, but not really putting them to sleep. And so you start identifying those, and you start thinking, okay, has Katrina tried these things, or what things has she tried in the past? And so I started looking at those things. I find the problems and the benefits of those, and then I started thinking about how I can serve them different. So one thought I would have is, okay, is anyone that's selling a CBD type sleep product including CBN? Are they including other terpenes that might have more angle towards more effects towards sleep, like myrcene, I believe. And so those are some things you identify, but then you expand it. And it's like, okay, well, she's also really anxious and she's also really stressed because of this job. It's sleep, but the sleep is caused by these other things. That's what Katrina is going through. She's also hooked to her cell phone and Facebook, right? And so
that would be like, you could say, oh, let's do a daytime routine for that stress during the day and a night routine for the sleep.
There you go. So you can do, now you got two that. You could also throw in like adaptogenics that kind of make this a little bit more of a well-rounded product. You could make them, so like for example, ashwagandha, Redola rose, or how do you say it, Redola?
Redelia? Yeah. I don't know. Another thing with Katrina, or her name's Katrina, right? I think custom packaging is a must for this lady. She's not going to like something that just looks plain and normal. She's going to like something that looks really nice and custom.
Exactly, man.